celebrating 55 years.
The time by Sagicor is
7 o'clock.
CVM News at 7 Wednesday, courtesy of
Your Love Lives On with life insurance from Sagicor.
Tonight in CVM News at 7, MedTechs return to work after days of protest. Sentence delivered 11 years after Mario Dean's death. New tourism law sparks Airbnb debate, and Montego Bay mayor refutes claims of unlawful poster removal. In the business report, the IMF's Dr. Nigel Clark issues a call for fairness in global finance. And in sports, Windies look to level 3-match series versus Aussies. From Kingston, Jamaica, this is CVM News at 7. It's Wednesday, July 2, 2025. I'm Nika Lewis. Thanks so much for joining us. After several days of disruption in hospital services across Western Jamaica, the protest by medical technologists has officially ended. But even as staff return to work, the impact of the strike is still being felt. Akeem Oret has this follow-up.
It was a protest that stalled critical services, delayed patient care, and brought heightened public concern. But now, the medical technologists at Cornwall Regional and Falmouth hospitals are back on the job. The industrial action, which began over unresolved issues, including late payments and the lack of protective gear, forced hospital administrators to implement emergency measures to keep essential operations running.
What we have done as a contingency measures, the elective blood investigations that, we send it out to private laboratories so that it will not have a great impact on our patients.
During the strike, clinical coordinator for the Western Regional Health Authority, Dr. Delroy Fray, confirmed delays in lab work and diagnostic services. The return to normalcy follows intense behind-the-scenes dialogue between health officials and union representatives, but workers remain cautiously optimistic and are hoping this is not just a pause, but the beginning of lasting change. Akeem Oret, CVM News.
Still in the West, in a major development in the Mario Dean case, a police corporal has been sentenced to 5 years in prison for her role in the death of the 31-year-old while in police custody nearly 11 years ago. Corporal Elaine Stewart was sentenced in the Westmoreland Circuit Court on Tuesday for manslaughter as well as misconduct in a public office and perverting the course of justice. The sentences will run concurrently, meaning she will serve a total of 5 years. Two other police constables, Marlon Grant and Juliana Cleavon, were each given suspended sentences of 3 years for manslaughter and 2 years for misconduct in public office. Dean was arrested in 2014 for possession of a ganja spliff and taken to the Barnett Street Police lockup in Montego Bay, where he was later denied bail and allegedly beaten while in custody. A post-mortem examination later revealed Dean suffered blunt force trauma and signs of suffocation. The ruling closes a long-standing case that raised national concern about abuse in police lockups. Well, police in Frome, Westmoreland have launched a full-scale manhunt to find the driver responsible for a fatal hit-and-run on Sunday night. The victim has been identified as 52-year-old Paul Willie, a well-known sugarcane worker who was employed to the Frome sugar factory for several years. Reports are that at around 12:30 in the afternoon, Willie was walking along the Frome Main Road towards Tollgate when he was hit by a vehicle. The driver didn't stop. He was rushed to the Savlamar Hospital by residents and a passing motorist, but sadly he didn't make it. Police say they're now trying to locate the driver and are appealing to anyone who saw what happened or has any information to come forward. Over in Trelawney, a wanted man was reportedly killed in a confrontation with police in Hague. The latest incident has left police in the parish appealing to suspects to desist from resisting arrest. More from Danila McLaughlin.
Trelawney has seen a 41.7% decrease in its murder rate, but police in the parish continue to battle the scourge. During an early morning operation, the police went to a house in search of a wanted man. It's alleged upon entering the premises, they were met with gunfire. They returned fire, hitting the suspect, Matthew Reed. While the operation was to locate another suspect, the police say Reed was also on their wanted list.
This morning, at about 3:45, a team of police officers went into the A community in Falmouth in search of one Akeem Prim, O.C. Chubby, who is wanted in relation to a case of murder. On arrival of the team, they were met by an individual, Matthew Reed, who opened gunfire on the police and the fire was returned. Matthew Reed was killed.
The deceased was a resident of St. James. He was wanted for a 2015 robbery and a 2016 murder. He was recently granted bail.
Matthew Reed is a known criminal suspect to the police from the Area 1 division. Matthew Reed is originally from St. James. He has a long history of criminality, to include robbery with aggravation, way as far back as 2015, murder in 2016, and illegal possession of firearm. Currently, Mr. Reed was recently granted bail in the court and is to be at home on a 24-hour curfew when this incident occurred.
Commanding officer for the Trelawney Division, Ainsley McCarthy, cautioned suspects who tend to confront the police. He's again imploring them to surrender to the authorities.
Police comes to your location with a warrant or on the advice of the court to check on persons who are granted bail by the court, along with the order of the court to remain at your location on curfew within certain hours. It gives the police a right to check to ensure that you are there within those hours. When the police comes to you, just surrender peacefully. You will not be able to win a war if you challenge the state.
The police are appealing to the public to assist them in locating Trelawney's top wanted men.
3 of the division's top wanted persons, they are Akeem Frame, O.C. Chubby, who is wanted for murder, Akeem DeAndre, who is wanted for robbery with aggravation, and Rio Rochester, who is also wanted for murder.
Indicom is investigating the matter. Danila McLaughlin, CVM News.
Now to a developing story. Mayor of Montego Bay, Richard Vernon, has dismissed recent allegations of unlawful poster removals in the township. In a recent video statement, Mayor Vernon reaffirmed that the municipal corporation's actions was not politically motivated. Carla Ramdeen has this follow-up.
Let me be unequivocally clear that the St. James Municipal Corporation is neither green or orange.
The saga continues with Mayor of Montego Bay, Richard Vernon, showing bill and receipt after being accused of unlawfully removing PNP campaign posters in the township again. Mayor Vernon reminds the municipal corporation is a statutory body guided solely by the laws of Jamaica and is not aligned with any political party.
Unfortunately, political operatives have sought to mischaracterize our actions as politically motivated, accusing us of victimization, threats to democracy, and unfairness. These claims are not only baseless, but also ignore the consistent enforcement efforts we have undertaken over the past year.
The mayor explains that PNP aspirant Dr. Andre Houghton's posters were taken down from commercial and revenue generation areas within the municipality. He notes that this resulted in the swift and lawful action of removing the posters.
On Sunday, one political aspirant again tested the resolve of our city management. In response, our team acted swiftly and lawfully to abate the breach. Let it be clear, the recent legal injunction was not a victory over the St. James Municipal Corporation. We have remained silent on the matter out of respect for the ongoing judicial review. However, when the individual in question violated the court's ruling, which was intended to maintain calm during the review, we were compelled to act once more.
Vernon explains the space was occupied freely by Horton, but has since been paid for.
Today, at 3:49 p.m., the aspirant finally paid for the space that sparked this entire controversy. With that, good sense has prevailed and order has been restored. Let the people of Jamaica reflect on this. It was never about democracy under threat. It was about optics. It was about the show.
Carla Ramdeen, CVM News.
We have more after the break, so stay with us.
Purchasing a vehicle is a lot more attainable with a Sagicor Bank Auto Loan. You'll be able to have your loan processed fast and hassle-free. We make it affordable with low interest rates. Your payments are manageable with up to 10 years to repay. Owning a new vehicle is comfortable with up to 100% financing. With a Sagicor Bank Auto Loan, your next ride is ownable and insurable. With discounts on auto insurance, with a Sagicor Bank Auto Loan, you'll be able to own the car of your dreams.
Get big rewards when you catch the Flow rhythm. Switch to Flow or activate a 2-day or higher data talk and text prepaid plan. Get instant prizes and loyalty points every time. The more points earned, the bigger the reward. Plus, 10 lucky winners will share the cash prize of over $1.5 million. Get big rewards with Flow's Cash the Rhythm promotion. Switch or activate before it's too late. Check your text message for winning link. Feel the rhythm of summer with Flow.
Hey everybody, I'm Yendi, and this is Odyssey with Yendi. In this space, we connect with some of your favorite people as they share their journeys. Here we have some unfiltered conversations as we deep dive into their inspirations, motivations, and experiences to inspire our own life journey.
Odyssey with Yendi, brought to you by Grace and Singer.
Thanks so much for staying with us. A new tourism bill aimed at modernizing Jamaica's tourism framework was passed in Parliament yesterday, but it has triggered criticism from the opposition, who claim the legislation could harm small players in the industry, including Airbnb hosts. Raymond Morrison has the latest.
The 70-year-old Jamaica Tourist Board Act is being repealed and replaced, with the government arguing that the updated legislation brings the industry in line with the modern realities.
All tourist enterprises will now be required to be registered. Additionally, the following tourism enterprises must also obtain a license to operate from the Tourist Board. 1. Tourist accommodations. 2. Tourist attractions. 3. Domestic tour services. And 4. Ground transportation services. So, Mr. Speaker, the new pieces of legislation, therefore, will repeal the River Rafting Act of 1970 and the following regulations and orders.
Under the new bill, certain tourism-related businesses, including tour guides, craft traders, and places of interest, must be registered with the Jamaica Tourist Board. But the opposition says it could sweep up others too, including Airbnb hosts.
But to pass something like this is wrong, given how far-reaching the implications are. So I'm urging time for the consultation and for those who are being affected. I hear you saying you consult, but may I tell you, me know the majority of people who run Airbnb don't know nothing about this. Or the first time them I hear about this. I could just call it plain. First time them I hear about this. Give it time, don't rush it. Don't create a liability and put people in a... No, you say it's not for Airbnb, but people who are operating what you call domestic tourism. They're caught within it.
Opposition leader Mark Golden also accused Tourism Minister Edmund Bartlett of sidelining stakeholders and rushing the passing of the bill.
I note the definition of tourism accommodation, and it means any facility or premises offering lodging or sleeping accommodation to any tourist or domestic tourist for hire or reward of any kind, including and it says a villa or an apartment, for example. So clearly, this would encompass what we describe as the Airbnb type accommodation. And certain consequences of matters arise from this, because it is bringing within the scope of this regulatory regime what we know has evolved to be a major part of the tourism industry. But are they ready to be regulated in this way?
But Minister Bartlett dismissed the claims, insisting that the bill is not designed to target Airbnb hosts.
Focus has been on Airbnb, and it's unfair to say that, simply because Airbnb is not unstructured. Airbnb operates on platforms that are highly structured, for which certain requirements are made, for which they must comply, failing which they will never be on those platforms. So within its own self, there is that regulatory. And the discussions are not about them and rates per se. The discussion is about how do we ensure destination assurance.
Minister Bartlett went on to explain that the new legislation marks a step towards greater accountability in structuring the tourism sector. But the opposition insists more consultation is needed. The tourism minister agreed to suspend the debate to allow for a broader consensus. Raymond Morrison, CVM News.
Also in Parliament on Tuesday, the Transport Ministry, although missing a timeline, may be inching closer to adjustments to the Road Traffic Act that aligns with global trends. However, the minister himself en route had to pass over his own blunders. More from Curlin Brown.
Perhaps powered up after his major announcement regarding the non-renewal of JPS's All-Ireland licence at the end of its contractual period in 2027, Energy Minister Darrell Vaz, switching hats to transport matters in Parliament later that day, found himself on the wrong side of proceedings. Ironically, his agenda was amendments to the Road Traffic Act 2018 and the Road Traffic Regulations 2022.
For the suspension of this debate.
So who had it, the ayes? Well, amidst the shuffling of notes and parliamentarians, the minister rose to his feet, referencing his commitment to the Prime Minister's mandate to implement new changes to motor vehicle regulations and certificate of fitness service in his budget presentation. The July 1 date of implementation was missed.
I will speak to the new date in due course.
In respect to other modifications, 5 words stood out: streamlining, process efficiency, economic development.
Speed. The bill is being passed now to align with the government's broader initiative to enhance administrative efficiency and modernize road user management.
But Minister Vaz's speed was cut mid-sentence just as he started to outline the key objectives of the bill.
Minister, just a moment.
Oh, it wasn't tabled?
Well, Minister Vaz said he was anxious to get it done. Minister Bartlett, on the other hand, explained he had indicated for the recommittal of motions given orally for the bill to be tabled and for the minister to make his presentation after. Well, this seemed like a go, as Minister Vaz formally obliged, giving notice for the suspension of the standing orders to allow him to introduce and read the bill for the first time.
Recommittal of bill of notice of motion given orally and presentation of bills without leave of the House first obtained.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to give notice at the next meeting of the House I'll move to introduce and have read a first time a bill shortly entitled the Road Traffic Amendment Act 2025.
But then the minister commenced, so as I said, and continued.
Minister, sorry, you have to ask for a suspension of the standing order. And remember, once you ask for the suspension, you will start from the beginning.
During the stop and go, Minister Vaz seemed to remain calm and eventually drove home a slew of amendments before the bill was passed.
This amendment not only benefits the government by enhancing the efforts towards modernizing its processes, but also benefits motorists by providing longer certificate validity periods.
Curlin Brown, CVM News.
The Green Hydrogen Project has been launched in Jamaica. The initiative aims to attract investment, encourage infrastructure development, and implement strategic projects towards the increased usage of renewable energy. With more, here's Druselle Mills.
Moving towards clean energy, Jamaica launches its hydrogen project funded by the Green Climate Fund program, which promotes the use of renewable energy that only emits water vapor and leaves no residue in the air, unlike oil or coal. The release of harmful gases in the atmosphere contributes to global warming. Speaking at the launch and workshop of the GCF-funded Regional Green Hydrogen Project on Tuesday, Minister responsible for Environment and Climate Change, Matthew Samuda, says Jamaica faces climate threats from hurricanes to rising sea levels to warming temperatures given our geographic location. It is important for the country to explore and innovate climate solutions, and this project responds to those needs.
Green hydrogen represents one of the most promising emerging technologies in the global transition to low-carbon economies. It is clean, versatile, and capable of decarbonizing hard-to-abate sectors such as transport, manufacturing, and shipping. And though you may not hear it as the primary topic on CNN or Fox News later as we discuss decarbonization, I can assure you most of the developing world is investing heavily in research for this technological deployment, regardless of utterances related to climate change. This, in many ways, represents the future of industrialization.
Minister Samuda also highlighted that this project will promote job creation in research, logistics, and industrial sectors. Jamaica is one of 7 countries in the Caribbean and Latin America to receive benefits from the Green Hydrogen Project. Head of United Nations Environment Program Caribbean Sub-Regional Office, Vincent Sweeney, promoted green hydrogen's role in Jamaica's strategically evolving energy mix.
Energy is critical for the future development of Jamaica. And in this regard, green hydrogen, which is something I'm only learning about myself, may play a strategic role in the country's energy mix and, by extension, in climate action, which is one of the areas in which UNEP has a very strong focus. Green hydrogen is not only key to decarbonizing hard-to-abate sectors, but generally it can also accelerate the decarbonization of existing hydrogen production from fossil fuels, facilitating energy transitions, which we hear a lot about, and achieving near-zero greenhouse gas emission reductions. Of course, we have to identify favorable public policies and invest in infrastructure. It is essential as a first step to drive development of national and international green hydrogen markets.
Jamaica's quest towards 50% green energy by 2030 continues to advance. Druselle Mills, CVM News.
We now turn to regional and international news.
We begin with news in the region. This week's visit by India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi underscores India's growing recognition of Trinidad and Tobago as a key regional partner and will deliver numerous benefits to its citizens. Prime Minister Modi's visit from July 3 to 4 marks the first by an Indian Prime Minister in over 2 decades. That report from TTT News.
Minister of Foreign and CARICOM Affairs, Sean Sobers, shared that Indian Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi's visit has already brought concretized initiatives and deliverables that will redound to the benefit of the citizenry.
So we've had some deliverables with respect to the Ministry of Agriculture, Land and Fisheries, with the donation of a significant portion of rice and oil. There is also the agri-processing plant that was also announced that India is donating to Trinidad and Tobago.
In addition to the agro-processing plant, valued at over $1 million, the health sector will also receive support from India.
is in terms of health. A lot of the goods, the medicine actually, that we utilize within Trinidad and Tobago also comes from India. And there's going to be a significant positive shift in terms of those types of medication that we would be purchasing from India, which would go a very, very, very long way for a lot of people within this country.
Nigerian President Bola Ahmed Tinubu made history this week with his landmark visit to St. Lucia, marking the first by a Nigerian head of state to the Eastern Caribbean. The visit signaled a bold new chapter of strategic partnership as Tinubu pledged to deepen Nigeria's ties with the OECS across key sectors. More from DBS Television.
President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, stated that Nigeria is ready to deepen cooperation with the OECS in areas such as trade, investment, health, culture, education, and climate change. President Tinubu announced Nigeria's readiness to extend its technical aid corps services to OECS countries. This initiative will provide skilled Nigerian professionals for capacity building across all sectors in the sub-region. President Tinubu also highlighted the formal establishment of diplomatic relations with St. Lucia as a symbolic bridge to foster stronger ties. He recommended that Nigeria and the OECS initiate negotiations for a formal agreement on a joint commission for political consultation, which would serve as a structured platform for broader cooperation.
In a concrete step towards this goal, Nigeria is open to exploring a visa waiver arrangement for holders of diplomatic and official passports from OECS member states traveling to Nigeria.
And in international news, the U.S. Senate has narrowly passed President Donald Trump's new tax and spending measures. The bill now goes to the House of Representatives for a potential final vote. More from Al Jazeera.
The bill extends tax cuts brought in during Trump's first term. It adds money for border security and immigration operations and the border wall, and pumps more money to the military, including the president's Golden Dome defense project. But the government's own budget watchdog says it will add $3 trillion to the national debt over 10 years and will see almost 11 million people lose access to healthcare coverage. Touring a new migrant detention center in Florida, Trump was monitoring the vote.
Well, I just heard that about the Senate, and the bill just passed, and it tells you there's something for everyone. I mean, it's a great bill. There is something for everyone. And I think it's going to go very nicely in the House. Actually, I think it will be easier in the House than it was in the Senate.
Democrats knew they were unlikely to stop the passage of the bill in the Senate, and they say this is a bad deal for ordinary Americans.
Today's vote will haunt our Republican colleagues for years to come, as the American people see the damage that is done, as hospitals close, as people are laid off, as costs go up, as the debt increases. They will see what our colleagues have done.
And that's it for regional and international news.
We're now being joined by Jordan Fort for some foresight ahead of sports.
Well, Nika, we know that Jamaica, a couple of Jamaican teams are chasing qualifying marks for the World Championships. The men's 4x1 team is among those, and the J3 is named that team, plus the women's 4x1 team and a mixed 4x4 team to chase qualification for the World Championships at the Barbados Grand Prix, which comes up on Saturday. So I'll tell you a little bit more about that. The West Indies, they resume their series against Australia. Remember, they're trailing 1-0 to the Aussies. They're in Grenada now, and they'll play the second test starting tomorrow. So I'll give you more information on that. Plus, a new National Basketball League champion has been crowned, but it's a familiar name after last night, and I'll give you the details of that and more in sports.
All right, you should stay for so much more after the break.
The time by KFC is
7:30.
Attention registered voters! Remember to collect your renewed voter ID card before the upcoming general election. If you registered to vote in 2016 or after and did not get your new ID card, it may have been automatically renewed. Simply visit your EOJ constituency office to collect your voter ID card. Contact the Electoral Office of Jamaica at 888-991-VOTE or 922-0425-9 for more information.
It's just joy and niceness whenever we get together. And that smile on your face is something to treasure. Yeah. Grateful that in these special moments, I'm the one that you always chosen.
Thank you, Jamaica, for 50 years of finger-licking good memories. KFC, it's finger-licking good.
Yeah.
Come rise with sunrise. Let Miss Kitty and Dennis make your Thursday brighter. First up, calling all parents, we check into Camp Summer Sizzle. Then we're serving up something fiery with Captain Kidd. It's back to the house for homing it with NHT. And we wrap your morning in Kids Unfiltered, powered by Sunshine Snacks. You've never seen a sunrise quite like this.
Thanks so much for staying with us. We go now to the business report with Joel Crosskill.
Lots to share with you in the business report today. A voice familiar to most Jamaicans. On June 30, stood before world dignitaries to deliver a message born from lived experience as the former Minister of Finance of one of the true economic recovery success stories of the modern age, represented not only the realities of the land of his birth, but also the shared challenges of nations across the globe who have found themselves in a similar situation, yet remain eager to embark on a new journey as the demands of development in this age urge profound financing shifts.
Your Majesties, the King and Queen of Spain, President of the Conference, Prime Minister Sanchez, United Nations Secretary General Guterres, President of the General Assembly, President of ECOSOC, Excellencies and authorities, good morning. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you today on behalf of the International Monetary Fund.
An organization that many Jamaicans will admit has inspired mixed reactions, having experienced debt that once exceeded 140% of GDP, that is this year expected to go below 70%, after a long and arduous journey that has allowed Jamaica's development agenda to gain new perspective and purchase, not just locally, but internationally, in what are particularly trying times.
Once again, the resilience of the world economy is being tested. Uncertainty is escalating as major policy shifts reshape countries' priorities. And despite progress that has been made on trade talks and the scaling back of some tariffs, trade policy uncertainty indicators are off the charts.
Uncertainties in global trade dynamics, conflicts in multiple arenas, and of course the challenges of climate change adaptation and energy insecurities among them.
This has major implications for developing countries for whom risks have grown. Risks to short-term and long-term growth, risks of tightened financing conditions, and, yes, risks to their development agenda.
One which the attendees at the 4th International Financing for Development Conference, hosted by the UN in Seville, Spain, were provided additional insight to from the IMF Deputy Managing Director.
This is why this conference is so important and so timely. It provides an opportunity to take decisive and necessary steps to accelerate development progress. And these steps must be taken both at the individual country level, but also at the international community level.
And thirdly,
let me stress 3 critical priorities, 1 at the country level and 2 at the international level. First priority at the country level, implement strong domestic reforms. In an uncertain economic environment, the work to advance development must begin at home. And let me point to 2 sets of critical reforms within this first priority. First, domestic revenues remain the bedrock of country-led efforts for sustainable growth and development. Many countries can boost resources available to them by broadening the tax base and improving compliance. And secondly, by building strong public financial management systems, they can redirect spending to sectors like health and education and well-targeted social safety nets and growth-enhancing public investments. At the international level, ensure that support is coordinated and tailored. Development partners must help with policy advice, capacity building, and financial support. And to be effective, assistance should be tailored to countries' individual circumstances and challenges. Indeed, while developing economies have many characteristics in common, there are keen differences in their economic conditions. The needs of the poorest and most fragile countries in particular, who are often the hardest hit by global shocks, demand our attention. And for those countries, concessional financing remains of critical importance.
Not as a buzzword, but as a true characteristic of those determined not just to survive, but thrive in a rapidly changing world.
The international community must further improve debt restructuring processes to ensure that countries with unsustainable debt have access to timely and sufficiently deep debt relief. We have already seen progress under the common framework and at the Global Sovereign Debt Restructuring Roundtable. And the recently published Sovereign Debt Restructuring Playbook is an important resource for countries considering a restructuring. But Excellencies, there is still much more work to do. The IMF is doing its part in supporting developing countries. Through our tailored policy advice, we help our members make their economies more vibrant and more resilient. And we will continue to strengthen our analysis and guidance on monetary, fiscal, exchange rate, and financial sector policies. Through our capacity development, we'll continue to help equip our members with tools and expertise to chart their own path, working in close collaboration